And then I saw her face. I'm a believer, and not a trace of doubt in my mind. I'm in love.
Hey guys, COHD here, and I am back with another reaction video. And today, this is my very first video reacting to a Christmas video for 2017. So yeah, today I'm gonna be reacting to Grogar, A Hearth's Warming Story, Chapter 1 by Obab Scribbler, or Scribbler Productions. Of course, Scribbler made this video, so yeah, this is our very first Christmas video that's released in December 2017. So, Grogar, A Hearth's Warming Story. Wait, she left. I think Scribbler left out horror in the title. Of course, this is a horror story. Of course, in the title it says grimdark. But this shouldn't be all that bad. I don't know if I'll like it or not. Anyways, let's jump it in!
Hey you! Yes, you, watching this video. Do you want to own a piece of Scribbler? Only not a lock of hair or blood
I've seen this,
or anything else that will get you in trouble with the law?
I've seen this part too many times, the Teespring thing.
T-shirts,
I mean,
hoodies, tote
jeez.
bags and mugs featuring Obab
How many times are you
Scribbler
gonna show that?
at her Teespring store. You know you want to. I shall now stop talking in third person and send you on to the video. Be lovely to each other and enjoy the show.
Okay. You know, also in the title it says with custom art.
Ponytails. Red
So this should be like
by Scribbler.
creative.
Apple Bloom peered out the window as the blizzard raged outside. She watched as the harsh wind blew around the normally fruitful spaces of Sweet Apple Acres. The wind howled and moaned against the various buildings that made up the farm as a whole. It sounded to her like the melancholy singing of some long-forgotten ghost, lost and alone on a freezing equestrian night. The old wood that made up the Apple family's farmhouse groaned against the dual assaults of the cold and the wind. The creaking and the moaning would have put another filly on edge, but Apple Bloom knew better. These timbers had held up for long before the day of her birth, and somehow she knew they had no intention of giving up the ghost anytime soon. Others might not have had the same faith that she had.
Apple Bloom, are you sure that the roof isn't going to come crashing down on us in the middle of the night?
Button.
Apple Bloom sighed,
Yeah.
resting her head
And
on the
button
window's
too.
glass.
Just like I told you the last 7 times, Button. It'll be fine.
Behind her, Button Mash pawed at the floor nervously.
You promise?
Button, you are really making me regret asking Apple Bloom to invite you over tonight.
Scootaloo rolled her eyes as she sipped from her mug of warm cider.
Scootaloo!
Sweetie Belle's voice cracked slightly as she admonished her friend from across the couch.
What a thing to say!
Diamond Tiara sipped her own cider as she looked up from the magazine she'd been reading.
That does beg the question. Why is Fun Mash here? I thought this was a girls-only sleepover.
Apple Bloom finally pulled herself away from the window and nimbly jumped onto her nearby chair.
I never specified one way or the other. How was I supposed to know that only Button's mama would give him permission to come over?
She spared the brown colt a pitying look.
I'm sorry none of the other boys could come. You must be bored to tears.
Button Mash chuckled.
It's fine. To tell you the truth, Mom only let me come because she says I need to socialize more.
Well, you do spend all your free time at the arcade.
Silver Spoon re-entered the room and reclaimed her
Oh,
place
yeah,
on the floor beside Diamond Tiara.
But let's
And
be
Diamond
honest
Tiara
with
and Silver
ourselves
Spoon.
here. We're not just here because Bloom asked us over. We're here so our parents will get rid of us for the night.
Oh, discarded on Hearth's Warming Eve.
Sweetie Belle muttered.
So the stallions and mares can hide from the blizzard in Town Hall and drink enough hard cider to forget they even have kids.
Diamond Tiara pouted.
Man, grown-up ponies suck.
Scootaloo grumbled.
I'll think you'd respect your elders when you're in this house, little missy.
The 6 young ponies' heads turned and watched as Applejack entered the room. She quickly removed her heavy coat and tossed it by the blazing fire to dry. She doffed her hat and began brushing the excess snow from the worn leather. Her eyes remained focused on Scootaloo.
Now, you were saying about grown-up ponies?
Scootaloo offered an embarrassed grin.
I didn't mean they all did.
Applejack, that you?
Granny Smith poked her head out from the kitchen.
You make the delivery all right?
Yes, ma'am.
The
Delivery.
farmer flipped her hat over and pulled out a crumpled receipt.
15 barrels of hard cider delivered to Mayor
cider.
personally. She said just bring this to her office the day after tomorrow and we'll get paid in full.
She looked back over at the young ponies.
Your folks say hi.
No, they didn't.
Silver Spoon muttered under her breath. Diamond Tiara nudged her best friend in the ribs and looked past Applejack.
Where's Big Macintosh? Did you lose him in the snow?
Nope.
Came the deep reply
Well, there
as
he is.
Macintosh Apple strode into the room. He tossed his own coat on top of Applejack's and gestured behind him.
But I did find some pony else out there.
A stone grey mare poked her head into the room and smiled through a curtain of mane the color of gravel.
Hi.
Marble! What are you doing here?
Apple Bloom ran across the room and
Marble.
hugged the earth pony tightly, much to the mare's
Huh.
discomfort and joy.
Oh, marble
The
pie.
Pie family came in to see Pinky and had to shove themselves into just one room at the inn. I told Marble's mom and pa that we had plenty of room, but Pinky's parents had already settled in, and Limestone didn't feel like walking in the snow.
And Maud?
Applejack shrugged.
Maud is Maud.
Ain't that the truth?
Granny muttered, before turning a gummy smile to Pinky's twin.
Well, there's always room for you in this house. Make yourselves comfortable. Cookies are nearly done.
Applejack made sure Granny was safely in the kitchen before she turned to her brother and the mare next to him.
Why don't you give Marble a quick tour of the house, Mac?
She made a point of adjusting an ornament on the decorated hearth-warming tree.
Before Granny comes back, I mean.
Mac and Marble blushed and gave each other small, shy, secret smiles.
Would ya like to see the house?
Once the love-struck pair was gone and Applejack had joined her grandmother
Oh yeah,
in the
I
kitchen,
remember when
the 5 fillies and solitary
when Marble
court
and Big Mac were
resumed
like
their
a
pre-cookie
couple
activities.
in Hearthbreakers.
So, is this a heartwarming Eve tradition?
Silver Spoon asked with an exaggerated yawn. Apple Bloom raised an eyebrow when she'd reclaimed her chair.
Is what a tradition exactly?
Sitting around until we die of boredom.
Despite her recently reformed status, Diamond Tiara could not resist giving a mean-spirited snort of laughter. Upon seeing the Cutie Mark Crusaders' withering looks, she looked away in embarrassment.
Sorry.
As much as I hate to admit it, Silver Spoon has a point. Are we actually gonna do anything tonight?
Button Mash jumped onto the couch next to Sweetie Belle and paid no mind to her barely suppressed squeak of surprise.
In my house, we play games in Hearthwarming Eve.
There's
Just
a
games?
shocker.
Scootaloo muttered into her cider. Button cut his eyes at her.
And what do you do in your house, if I may ask?
Scootaloo grinned.
Heartwarming Eve in my house is the best. We do this ancient Pegasite tradition called the mystery gift. Every pony passes around an empty box, opens it, and pretends it's exactly what we wanted for heartwarming. The others have to guess what it is.
Apple Bloom smiled.
That's real nice, Scoots.
But what do you win?
Diamond Tiara shoved the magazine over to Silver Spoon and propped herself up on the pillow she was stretched out on.
The pony who guesses the most times, I mean. What do they win?
Scootaloo
Yeah,
crossed her forelegs and
that's
gave
what
a
I'm thinking.
cocky smirk.
The winner gets to open the first gift on Heartwarming morning. I've won the last 3 years in a row.
Diamond Tiara rolled her eyes at the orange filly's bravado and looked to Sweetie Belle.
What about you? Do you have some old unicorn traditions?
Sweetie Belle thought about it as she lit her horn and levitated her mug away from her and onto a nearby coffee table.
Not sure about ancient traditions, but my dad drinks a lot if that counts.
That's not a tradition.
Silver Spoon whispered into Diamond Tiara's ear.
That's therapy fodder.
Diamond
Therapy?
Tiara pulled away and glared at her best friend.
Can you please stop being so rude?
Well, excuse me for actually wanting to have fun on Hearthwarming Eve.
Apple Bloom looked sharply at the silver filly.
There's something wrong.
Silver Spoon rolled her eyes and returned to the magazine.
Nothing's wrong. If we were at my house right now, we'd be opening the first gifts of Hearthwarming.
She looked around the room smugly.
I get so many presents each year that we have to start the night before.
Wow, you're such a lucky pony. I sure do wish that my parents had to buy my love every season.
Please, Scootaloo.
Silver Spoon narrowed her eyes at the Pegasi's sarcastic tone of voice.
Don't get all mean just because your family is so poor that they had to come up with a tradition where you pretend that you're excited to get literally nothing for Hearthwarming.
Scootaloo's wings flared and she jumped to the floor.
My family isn't poor, and at least we know the real reason for the season.
Silver Spoon pushed the magazine away
Things are
and stood on her
starting to
own
get
hooves.
serious.
Just what I'd expect to hear from the girl who's shown up these past few winters in the same ragged coat.
I like that coat.
She took another step forward.
You don't know any better.
The Earth Pony mirrored her.
Here's the
Stop
phone
it,
ringing
Sylvie.
again.
Diamond
is
Tiara
earlier.
reached out a hoof, but pulled back when Silver Spoon yanked her leg away.
Honestly, if we were in Apple Bloom's house right now, I'd
probably
kick
nobody.
your flight from here to Manhattan.
Sweetie Belle started to climb off the couch.
Scootaloo, maybe we should just all calm down. You wanna fight? Let's fight.
Silver Spoon's ears flattened.
It'll probably make Sweetie Belle feel right at home if you start acting like her dad after too many hard ciders.
Sweetie Belle froze, and then pulled herself back onto the couch.
I'll do your homework for the next 2 months if you just break her glasses.
Button Mash looked around in confusion.
Is this normally what happens at girls' sleepovers?
Scootaloo tensed to spring.
Last chance. Take back what you said about my family.
Hey!
And Sweetie Bells.
Silver Spoon snorted and pawed at the floor, her tail whipping back and forth.
The only thing that should be taken back around here is that old, smelly, patch-stained, manure-encrusted coat of yours!
Oh, manure.
That's it!
The two fillies rushed at each other.
Stop!
Apple Bloom leaped between them and held out her hooves to stop them.
Just stop all this right now!
Now what in tarnation is going on in here?
The young ponies all looked up to find Applejack staring at them, a tray of cookies and milk balanced on her back.
Well,
Granny Smith's laughter drifted out from behind the cow pony.
Hey, don't you worry about them none, Applejack. He just wanted to be Grogar, so.
Button Mash tilted his head.
Oh, Grogar?
Granny Smith snorted as she made her way to her old rocker by the fire.
Now, don't tell me no pony's ever told you a lot about Grogar. He's as important a part of Hearthwarming as Santa Hooves himself.
The fillies and colts stared at her with uncomprehending eyes. Granny Smith hefted herself into her chair and smiled.
I guess it's up to me to spin the tale then. Applejack, you pass out them cookies and milk. The rest of you get comfy.
The ponies all returned to their original seats, Scootaloo and Silver Spoon shooting looks at each other to make it clear that they were nowhere near done.
Now, what can you little ponies tell me about Santa Hooves?
Santa Hooves travels around Equestria on Hearthwarming Eve, visiting all the
Of course,
village and
Santa
cults
Hooves.
in the land.
Sweetie Belle smiled as she bit into a cookie.
Very good. You've been a good
course,
little
the pony
pony in
version
order
of
to
Santa
spirit
Claus.
harmony all year. Then you get a present, right?
6 heads all nodded.
Sometimes if you're a bad pony, you're lucky to get cold.
Is coal bad?
Marble asked as she and Mac re-entered the room and squeezed into a love seat, dopey grins on their faces.
I like getting coal for hearthwarming.
Granny Smith ignored her and continued.
Marble.
You might just attract the attention of Grogar.
Who is Grogar?
Apple Bloom asked.
He's Santa Hooves' opposite number. His shadow, you might say. It's said that he's a huge ram with fur the color of a full moonlit night. His eyes burn with the blazing red fires of the deepest pits of Tartarus. His mouth is full of fangs so sharp they can bite right through stone.
Sweetie Belle gulped and unconsciously pulled closer to Button Mash.
It's said that he lives all year round in the ruined cities of Tambalon, far beyond the distant north, and he only comes out on Hearthwarming Eve. He flies around Equestria, listening for anger and sniffing for disharmony. And when he finds it, then he swoops down and snatches that pony in the chains that he always carries with him. He aims spells from
like
the
a pretty deadly fairy tale
flies around and does
for
his
Hearthwarming.
work. I heard tell that if you hear those spells at Tambalon, it's already too late.
The ponies all flinched.
What happens to the ponies that get snatched?
Button Mash stammered.
No pony knows.
Granny Smith looked at the flickering flames in the hearth, her mouth set in a frown.
I've heard it told that he drags them to Tartarus where they suffer for all time. I also heard it once or twice that he just eats the little ponies he takes away.
Scootaloo's eyes widened in horror.
The way my Granny told though was the worst of all. She told me that the taken was spirited away to Tambalon itself. They stripped them everything that made them who they were until they ain't nothing but husks, neither living nor dead. There they serve Grogar until the end of time, deprived forever of the things they treated so lightly. The spirit of Hearthwarming, the spirit of friendship, of harmony itself.
Granny looked back at the little ponies with a mischievous glint in her eyes.
Oh, and one more thing y'all need to know.
The colt and 5 fillies leaned forward in expectation.
I wager that he heard that little spell y'all were having earlier and came a little early.
As if in
Oh, like how
response,
early?
a pair of curved horns began to rise from behind the sofa. Apple Bloom saw them first from her perch on the chair. She pointed a hoof and screamed,
Dramatic music.
The other young ponies screamed and panicked, scrabbling madly away from the couch. As if in response to their screams, a deep, booming laughter came from behind the cushions, from beneath the horns. Familiar booming laughter.
Big Mike!
Apple Bloom, the first
Oh,
to
that was
scream,
Big Mac.
was now the first to figure it out. Her eyes narrowed with as much rage as her tiny body could handle. The stallion rose up fully, almost doubled over with laughter. Tied to his head by a flimsy string was a pair of horns, presumably carved from a log from the Apple family's woodpile. Granny Smith's wizened cackling soon joined her grandson's as he crossed the room and gave her a hoof bump.
Got good, boy.
Applejack stared at the two, visibly unamused.
I hope you two are proud of yourselves.
Yeah, that
now
was
we got
really
a bunch
funny.
of little ponies that ain't gonna be sleeping at all tonight.
Well, whatever, AJ.
Scootaloo climbed back onto the couch and did her best to hide her still trembling wings.
It wasn't that scary.
Silver Spoon also scoffed as she settled back onto one of the floor cushions, making a point to be as far away from Scootaloo as possible.
Yeah, like there'd ever be something as silly as a ram that snatches colts and fillies away.
Button Mash made to grab his cap from where it had fallen and found his leg and hoof held hostage in the iron grip of a unicorn.
Sweetie Belle?
Huh?
Sweetie Belle noticed what she was holding on to and released it as quickly as she could manage.
Sorry. No idea why that happened.
She muttered with a forced chuckle.
Actually, you kinda do.
Granny's laughter faded and she fixed her eyes on Silver Spoon.
Oh, this with Mac was all a joke. You can bet on that. But you better believe Grogar's real. As real as Who's yourself.
Silver Spoon did not flinch from Granny's gaze.
I know that. Because Santa Hooves isn't real either.
The silence that followed was broken only by the crackling of the fire.
That doesn't sound good.
Apple Bloom looked at the grey filly reproachfully. Silver Spoon rolled her eyes.
I should have figured that you, of all ponies, wouldn't have figured it out by now.
Figured what out?
Applejack looked between the two fillies in mounting horror. This was not how she had wanted this information to come out.
Alright, I think we all better tuck in.
Figured what out?
Apple Bloom ignored her big sister.
Yeah, I guess I haven't figured it out either.
Button Mash's face shared the same look as Apple Bloom, curiosity and confusion.
Really?
Silver Spoon looked at her peers.
Okay, raise your hoof if you think Santa Hooves is real.
Silver Spoon?
Diamond Tiara whispered dangerously. But the hooves of 3 fillies and a colt were already in the air. Sweetie Belle gaped at Diamond Tiara, her hooves still flat on the floor.
You don't believe in Santa Hooves?
Mac's attention was pulled from the escalating tension by the realization that some pony was missing. Applejack looked at the love seat where the pie sister had been sitting and snorted in irritation.
You must have scared her off with that trick, you big dunderhead. She could be anywhere in this house.
Y'all go find that scaredy mare.
Granny's eyes still burned a hole through Silver Spoon.
I'll make sure these 6 don't start rumbling again.
Applejack opened her mouth to protest, but thought better of it. Instead, she looked to her brother.
You take the upstairs, I'll take down here. And for pony's sake, get rid of those horns before you give that mare a heart attack.
Yup.
Mac muttered
Big Man,
sheepishly
put those down.
as he left the carved horns by the fireplace. Silver Spoon was smirking at Diamond Tiara.
Of course she doesn't believe.
She removed her glasses and rubbed them against her coat to clean them.
Did you figure it out yourself, or did your parents tell you?
Diamond Tiara sighed heavily.
Mother told me last week after I found a stash of presents in the attic and asked about them. She said she was glad I'd found them because I was getting too old to believe in old ponytails.
Santa Hooves isn't an old ponytail!
Scootaloo shouted.
He's the only pony in this whole world that treats all of us equally!
Then why does he always bring you gifts that aren't as nice as what every pony else gets?
Her words began to fan the flames of anger in Scootaloo's heart.
Santa Hooves does what he can.
I bet your dad told you that, didn't he?
That's enough, Missy.
Granny Smith's voice was suddenly razor sharp in its tone.
It ain't your place to be saying these things. I may be up by years, but I can still tell your hide.
A ding came from the kitchen.
Take flabbing cookies.
The old earth pony muttered to herself as she made her way to the kitchen, casting one last wilting look at Silver Spoon. Apple Bloom's eyes were now on Diamond Tiara.
What did your mom tell you?
Diamond Tiara's eyes were on the floor.
Our parents made up Santa Hooves. They hide extra presents every year and put them out after you go to sleep on Hearthstorming Eve.
Button Mash laughed uneasily.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why would they go out of their way to lie about something like that?
Because their
I think
parents
that
lied to
might
them
be
about
true
it.
because
And their parents
usually
do
when
the
I
same
sleep
thing.
on Christmas
It's a
Eve,
tradition to lie to
I
your
hear.
bulls.
I think I would hear
Silver
my
Spoon
parents
smirked
putting
humorlessly as she put her glasses back on.
putting the presents under the
How
tree.
messed up is that?
What is wrong with you tonight, Silver Spoon?
Diamond Tiara looked up with worry at her best friend.
What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me?
Silver Spoon jumped off her cushion and started pacing in front of the fireplace.
What's wrong with all of you? Newsflash, hot off the presses. All the ponies in this town do nothing but lie to each other and keep secrets. Secrets and lies. Well, you know what? I've had it with secrets and lies.
The wind blew against the house again, creating a low creaking moan, as though the house were warning Silver Spoon to stop.
It's time to grow up. And growing up means facing the truth.
I bet your dad told you that, didn't he?
Silver Spoon's jaw snapped shut, and she gazed at Scootaloo with unbridled fury.
What did you just say to me?
Is that what he told you after he told you Santa Hose wasn't real?
Scootaloo met Silver Spoon's eyes without
Seriously,
fear.
such drama.
That's what this is all about, isn't it? Your folks ruined it for you, so you have to ruin it for every pony else?
Scootaloo nodded towards Diamond Tiara.
At least she had the decency to keep that information to herself.
Decency?
Button Mash raised a hoof.
I wasn't aware we had decided Santa Hose wasn't real.
He looked around in confusion.
Is that still not up for debate?
Decency is doing the adult thing and accepting the truth, not hiding behind foolish innocence.
Silver Spoon turned her glare to Sweetie Belle, sitting once again near Button Mash.
Here, I'll show you. Hey, Button Mash.
He looked up expectantly.
Sweetie Belle has
Silver.
a crush on you.
Sweetie Belle's mouth dropped
just spilled the
open,
beans.
and her blush could be seen clear through her coat.
You weren't supposed to tell any pony!
Oh, please. It's not like no pony noticed. He just didn't because he has the social skills of a diamond dog.
That's enough, Silver Spoon.
Diamond Tiara shouted.
You're years away from your first heat and you're already practically raising your tail for him. Ugh!
Scootaloo shot across the room like a bullet and tackled the earth pony to the floor. She stood over her and raised a hoof to strike.
No pony talks to her like that!
Silver Spoon's eyes rolled with anger.
Like you're any better. Go ahead and beat me up. Maybe that will impress her so much that she'll stop focusing on the king of dorks over there and look at you for once like you've always wanted her to look at you.
Scootaloo faltered, her eyes wide.
What?
Silver Spoon took the opportunity and kicked straight upward. The orange filly went soaring and landed next to the hearth-swarming tree with a crash. Button Mash and Sweetie Belle ran over to check on their fallen friend. Sweetie Belle deliberately keeping away from Button's coat and trying to process what Silver Spoon had just revealed. Apple Bloom jumped from her chair and squared herself.
I don't give a darn what you're going through right now. No pony treats some pony like that under the apple's roof.
Silver Spoon got back on her hooves and giggled madly.
Like we wanted to be under the apple's roof in the first place!
Diamond Tiara saw where her friend was going, but it was already too late.
Sylvie, don't...
Why don't you tell Hayseed over here what you told me when you found out we'd be coming here for Hearthwarming Eve?
Apple Bloom froze and looked over at the filly whom she had once considered her greatest enemy.
What's she talking about, Tiara?
Diamond Tiara
what
opened
is she
her
talking
mouth
about?
to speak, but closed it again, unsure of what she wanted to say.
I'll tell you, and I'll use small words so your bumpkin brain can process it.
Silver Spoon adjusted her glasses, now ignoring how off-kilter they were.
She told me how upset she was that she had to spend the most magical night of the year crammed into this dusty, dirty old shack with ponies we get more than enough of at school.
Each word pierced Apple Bloom deeper.
Did you really say that?
Diamond Tiara looked away, and it was all the answer Apple Bloom needed.
Don't act so surprised, Hayseed!
Silver Spoon was beyond reason now, her body visibly vibrating with adrenaline.
Did you really think that whole cutie mark incident meant that we were magically best friends forever now? Because that's not how real life works. Sure, we might pal around now and won't mock you for being a blank flank. But in a few years,
Well then.
we'll start mocking how hideous your cutie
Back
marks
to that
are.
devilish side
Scootaloo
of
looked
Silver
up from
Spoon.
between her doting friends to say something about the insult, but found her gaze drawn to the window. The blizzard outside seemed to be growing stronger.
School, fullhood, friendships, they all go away. After school's over, we're all going to settle into the roles we were always meant to be in. Scootaloo will always be poor, Sweetie Belle will probably give Button a buttload of babies, you'll live on this farm until the day you die, and Diamond Tiara and I will rise above you to be the absolute upper crust of pony society. We're the only friends we'll ever need.
A slap rang out through the room. All eyes found Silver Spoon holding her cheek in shock. Silver Spoon stared at Diamond Tiara, her hoof still raised. Diamond Tiara glared, tears running down her face.
You're not acting like my friend.
Silver Spoon's
definitely.
shock shattered as the rage returned. She squared herself in front of the roaring fire and stared at her former best friend.
Fine! I don't need you! I don't need any of you! I don't need my parents, or their lies, or their stories about mythical gift givers!
A peculiar sound drew Sweetie Belle, Button Mash, and Scootaloo's eyes back to the window. The night outside was obscured completely by white. The panes of glass were starting to frost over.
I don't need any of this! And when I have a foal, I won't waste her time with silly stories like Santa Hooves and Grogar! I won't waste her time with nonsense like friendship! And come to think of it, I won't waste her time with hearts warming at all!
Sweetie Belle's ear twitched.
Does any pony else hear that?
You mean the wind?
No. I hear it too.
Button Mash put his ear to the window and tried to ignore the almost burning cold.
It almost sounds like...
Bells?
Sweetie Belle whispered in confusion.
It's a no, Silver Spoon! Can't you just stop?
Apple Bloom cried.
No! I hate all of you! I hate my parents! I hate Ponyville! And I hate hearts warming!
The entire house shook as an enormous thud came from the roof. A freezing wind blew down the chimney and blew the fire completely out. Silence descended upon the room.
Did the roof just cave in?
A sudden shriek of metal on stone came from the chimney. The assembled ponies watched as a long length of chain shot out of the hearth and wrapped itself around a frozen-in surprise Silver Spoon. It looped around her several times before the hook on the tip locked onto one of the links, securely tying her. Dangling from the chain was a multitude of gently tinkling bells. Silver Spoon stared at the others, her mind unable to process what was happening.
What?
The chain was yanked back suddenly, violently, and Silver Spoon vanished up the chimney without another sound, save for the cruel laughter of the bells hanging from the chain.
Looks like Silver Spoon's
Her
being
glasses
kidnapped.
hit the floor. The left lens
I heard
was
that.
cracked. Then the screaming began.
To be continued. Well, that was a good first chapter. Yep. Heartwarming horror story. Anime loading. Oh, Agent O Fluffy. Or Macintosh. Okay. Well then, that was a good first part, or first chapter of Grogar, a heartwarming horror story. So, Scootaloo and Silver Spoon are having this whole argument, if Santa Hooves is real or not, and because Silver Spoon called Scootaloo's family poor. And then Silver Spoon just spilled the beans about Sweetie Belle having a crush on Button Mash. And then, of course, Granny Smith told the fillies and the other ponies, including Marble, Big Mac, and Applejack, story about Grogar and how he snatches the naughty fillies. Jeez. I wonder what's gonna happen in the next part. Will Silver Spoon be alright? Perhaps we'll find out next time. Once again, guys, thanks for watching, and oh!